Hello, welcome to the crafting Chez. I'm Ruth from Beltane Gifts, and today I'm going to be showing you how to needle felt one of these. This is a needle felted Easter egg brooch. Now the reason I'm making that today is because one, Easter is coming, and two, I want to make an Easter themed wreath. So I've decided I'm going to make a few different brooches, make them in different sizes and shapes, and then I can just attach them to my wreath and just alter it as I want. Now this little guy is made using a mixture of needle felting and embroidery. As you can see, I've just done some really basic embroidery on this, just some little stitches and some little knots, just to give it a bit of added texture and interest. Now with these though, you can do whatever you want with them. You can adapt them however you like, add some beads, add a little bit of ribbon. You could add different pictures if you wanted to, needle felt on a little chick, whatever you like. I'm just going to show you the real basics so that you can go off and make as many as you want in as many different shapes as you like. So what we're going to need to start off with is something to felt on, just because it's going to get fiddly in places. Something to felt with, so I'm going to be using my fine needle felting needle. Now this is a 38 gauge star needle, which is the finest I currently have. You don't need to use like a gauge needle like I am, it's just what I had in the handle, just a generic fine needle will do. So I've got that. You'll need some scissors just for cutting the sewing threads. You'll need a brooch back if you're going to turn it into a brooch. If you don't want to turn it into a brooch, you just want to attach it to something separately, you can skip that stage. I've got some pre-cut, I basically cut them out earlier, acrylic felt egg shapes. They're so easy to do. You just get your piece of acrylic felt or wool felt if you have it, and just basically cut out a shape of an egg. So yeah, bigger at the bottom, pointier at the top. And I'm also going to be doing some sewing on it, so I've got a selection of embroidery threads. Now these come in multiple strands. The ones I'm using are sewing cottons, and they had 6 strands, so I've split them in half because I find for the size I'm doing that just 3 of the fine strands is enough. See, there's 3 little strands there. Now these are all twisted together just to make it thicker. The great thing about it is you can use as many or as few as you like. So I've got those pre-threaded on just normal needles, just because it saves time. And of course, finger protectors, because we are going to be stabbing near our hands and it can get fiddly in places, so you need to be careful. And for the wool that I'm using carded fibre at the minute. You don't need to. This is carded Corriedale, but you can use roving if you've got it. You can use core wool to build it up if you've got core wool at home. But yeah, just a selection of pastel-y colours, kind of Easter themed colours. Again, you can use whatever colours you like. Now, I'm going to take my acrylic shape, pop it on the cushion there, pop my finger protectors on, because I made my first one yesterday and ended up stabbing myself a couple of times. So yeah, safety first. Now to build up the shape that we're going to decorate, what I'm going to use is some just plain white wool fibre. Bundle it up into a bit of a ball, lay it over the top of your felt shape, and what we're going to do is we're going to stab inwards just around the outside edge, just catching this wool at a 45-degree angle, with the needle always pointing towards the centre of the shape. Now you'll need to peel off regularly, just because the fibres will stick to your cushion or your pad that you're using. Rotate it and always have it so that you've got an easy access to the area you're stabbing. There we go, I've done one rotation. Don't worry that there's some purple showing, because we're going to be adding extra fibre later, plus we haven't finished attaching this. Now what you can see is that you've got a big load of fibre just kind of mushrooming up on top there, and you've got some fibre coming through your acrylic felt here at the bottom. That's great, that's what we want, and that's going to keep everything attached and in place. Now we're going to keep going round and round, gradually working our way higher up as we go, always stabbing towards the centre at a 45-degree angle, and this is going to attach everything and start shaping it. Okay, so we've gone round and just done just like a rough random stabbing here. Now if you look from the side, you'll see we're starting to get that dome shape, but there are bits that are still sticking up, and you'll also see that from the other side it's spread out and it's no longer in that egg shape. Don't worry, we're going to fix that next. What we do is take it between finger and thumb, and where it's sticking up here, we're just going to stab straight down, 90-degree angle, just over the bit that's sticking out. Now I'm adding just a little bit of pressure between finger and thumb, just to hold everything in place so that it doesn't spread out in any strange directions. And this actually gets the fibres closer together and makes it that bit quicker to felt. Okay, so we've got more of a shape, still not right, so we're going to keep going round as we've been doing. Little stabs close together now, just to start that shaping. And what we want to do is just bring everything in and just start rounding it off. Okay, we've got more of an egg shape now, but you will see that the top here, the dome, is just too lumpy. And also you'll find eggs tend to be narrower at the top. So what we need to do is move some of this here from the pointy end down this way. So I'm turning it sideways, 45-degree angle. I'm just stabbing downwards towards this centre bit here, little jabs. So if you see that, how it's created more of that curve. And we just need to go over this lumpy end now. If you see it from this angle, you see the curve goes around here. What I'm imagining is that down the centre here there is a line. So when I'm stabbing, I want my needle always to be pointing towards that line. So if you see that, as I work my way over, the needle is changing its angle so that when it's along the top bit here, it's stabbing straight down. When it's at the sides there, it's pointing inwards. And this should give us our nice curved shape. There we go, so we've got a nice bit of a curve there. Okay, so this is our basic egg shape. For me, this will do for now because I'm going to add more colours over the top, so I'm going to be felting it again. Just make sure that it's reasonably firm. Just because you are covering it, you need there to be a nice solid base, otherwise it will lose its shape when you add your next colour. Once we've got that, we're just going to take some little bits. We'll use like a strip of one of the colours. I'm going to lay it over the top and I'm going to start stabbing in the centre. Now the reason I'm doing this is because if you start from one side, there is the tendency to stab the other side and then everything gets tightened up and your fibre doesn't felt in properly. Let me bring this a bit closer. I'm not stabbing too deep, so I don't have to worry too much about my fingers. But if I just stab little stabs, I'm just catching that fibre and you can see it getting drawn in. Make sure you get right to the end. And you can even just catch your fibres, the loose bits here, and just kind of tuck them in behind the felt, the acrylic felt, and that way you'll hide all of your backing. Now I want a straight line, which this isn't. So what I'm doing is just catching the edges and just pulling them down slightly, and then I'm just going to push this up just ever so slightly. Once I've got it covering the shape I want, what I'm going to do is just lay it down and lots of little jabs. I'm not going deep at all. I'm just catching any loose fibres and tucking them in. Okay, so that's our top part of the egg. Now I'm going to go over the whole thing once all my colours are on, just to go over the shape again and blend everything together. But what we're going to do is our next band of colour. I think I'm going to go with blue. And what I'm going to do is lay it just slightly overlapping the yellow. Again, stab in the middle, a few little stabs. And when we're doing our bands, the most important part are the lines. So I need to make sure that this line here is nice and smooth, and I need to make sure that this one's nice and smooth. So if I've got extra fibre at the ends here, I'm just folding it over. Once I'm sure that it's felted right to the edge, you want to make sure you cover that edge with it. Once it's really tucked in there, then you can fold any excess back along the way we came, and any fluffy bits just catch. And what we're going to do to make sure our line is nice and smooth, I'm going to work across it with my needle quite a low angle, so I'm basically running it against the side of the egg, and just catch those fibres, lots of little jabs all in a line. I'm not putting any sideways pressure on the needle though, we don't want to break it, and that just catches any loose fibres there and just tucks them in. So that's in place. What we can do now is just, again, little stabs all over, 90-degree angle to smooth it out. Now you want to do this all the way down your egg until you've done the whole thing. Okay, so this is the real foundation basic felt done. What I'm going to do now is felt over the whole thing, paying particular attention to getting those curves in, making sure it's nice and egg shaped again. Okay, I think that'll do for now. You can, as always, spend more time on this if you need to. Now you will find that you end up with a concave base, and we don't want that because it's going to be a nightmare to stick your pin badge onto. So what we're going to do is just lay it down with our felted side on the cushion, and I'm just going to stab straight down around the outside edge just to flatten it out a bit. Okay, so our basic egg shape is there, it's ready to go. Time to decorate it. And what I'm going to do to start off with is felt on some little dots. So to do those, I'm going to pull off some little bits of pink first. I'm going to try and get the same amount of fibre for each one. You don't have to be too precise, but it's good to be in the kind of general area. And the reason we're doing this now is because it can be really hard to gauge how much fibre you used once it's felted in place. So what we're going to do is get our little pieces of fibre, and I'm just going to roll them between my fingers. Now this starts the felting process, and it also reduces the number of loose fibres that you have. Okay, so those are my dots ready. What you do is decide where you're putting them, and I quite like using odd numbers, so I'm going to go for 3. So the first one, let's pop it in the middle. So if you find that this is too fiddly with your finger protectors on, you can always use something like an awl. So I've got one here, or a knitting needle if you've got a fine one, and what you can do, a skewer as well. Just hold it in place with the point of your awl, and we're just going to stab right in the middle. And can you see there as I'm stabbing how the fibres are getting pulled in? Now I'm trying to stab in exactly the same place each time, and just catching some of these fibres and tucking them under. Now do this really slowly because you don't want it all to get sucked inside. Just get it so that you've got about the size you want. So I think that's about the right size for me. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stab around the outside edge in little jabs close together, just catching those extra bits of fibre and spreading them out and holding them in place. You might need to go around a few times. Now once you've got it pretty much where you want it, you can, if you need to, just work at a really low angle with your needle, just catch those outside edges and just tuck them in, and that way you can just change the outside shape. Now you might see that this is sticking up quite a bit, so what you can do, just lots of little jabs again, just over the surface. Imagine that it's part of the rest of the egg, which it should be by now, and you can give it a little squeeze if you need to, and just do the same with any others that you want to add. Okay, so I've got my dots there now. Time to start doing some sewing. Now if you've seen my previous videos, you know I'm not very good at sewing, but this is so basic I think anyone could do it. So choose what colours you want. Let's try some pale blue to start off with. Now I'm going to do some little stars on the green. I don't put a knot into the end of my thread, I just do little stitches instead. So I'm just popping needle through, pull it so you've just got a little bit of an end. Now remember, we're going to be putting a brooch back onto this, so you don't need it to be perfect. And just put my thumb on the loose end so that it can't be pulled through, and just pull tight, and that should be secure enough to hold everything in place. So I'm just going to come through. I'm going to do 2 stars, so I'm going to come up around here first. I'm just going to do a little line, kind of equal distance from the bottom there. Come through. We want to get it about the same length of the stitch. There we go, so we've got a little cross. I'm going to turn this into a star by just doing a line in between the 2 others. There we go, so that's just a really simple star. It just adds a bit of interest, and just do the same again for any others you want to add. Okay, it's a little bit lopsided, so I'm just giving the whole thing a little bit of a squidge there just to kind of line it up a bit. And I think I want to do some zigzags at the top, or some lines. So I'm just going to sew a little stitch at the back again, just to finish off this thread. Scissors, just snip that off. We want it short enough so that it's not going to stick out the end. I think I would go for probably the pink. So it's same as before, just do a little stitch at the back. Then I'm going to come up through here. And I think I'm just going to do like a sunburst almost of lines. So I'm going right up to the blue, and then going back to the centre each time. As I say, not the best sewer. I have to try not to sew too tightly here, just because I don't want to change the end shape too much. There we go, so I'm just going to do a little stitch at the back there to finish it off. Snip off the remaining thread. Now I think it needs something at the bottom, so I think I might put on some little blue. Do you think some blue dots? Just 2? Yeah. So same as before. Now adding the dots has thrown the shape out a little bit, so I'm just felting over the whole base section again, just trying to smooth everything out. I'm not convinced by these blue dots, but we're just going to go with it. So I think what they need is a bit more thread adding, so I'm going to go with the yellow, I think. Go, and then I'm just going to sew through to the centre of all my dots and just do a little knot. So just pop the cotton through itself, pop your thumb on just where the threads meet and pull. This should just keep the knot as close to the centre of your dot as possible. And then we just sew right back through right next to it. And repeat for all the others. Now that knot wasn't as close as I would like it, but don't worry, you can just pull from the other side to shorten any bits that's sticking through. Now there we go, that's our next egg, and as you can see with the other ones, they all look slightly different, and it's just like decorating real Easter eggs. You ever do that at school where you had to blow out the centre of the egg and then paint it? Yeah, it's like that, only less chance of salmonella. So I've got myself just 2 strands this time of one of the sewing cottons. I don't have a purple that matches, so I'm just going with something that's kind of similar. Before we add our back to our egg, just make sure it's about the right size. You might find, like in mine, it's changed shape slightly as I've stabbed it, so you might need to just give it a little trim. What we want is it to be slightly smaller than the main egg, so it's okay if you see a little bit of the felted section. We don't want to be seeing the purple through those, so take it slow and just take off what you need. There we go, so that should do for now. Okay, now because your egg might not be totally symmetrical, after you've done your trimming, you just need to remember which way this is. So this is the bit that's going to be showing, so I'm just going to turn it over. This is going to be our inside bit that we're going to glue, so I'm just going to do a little stitch with my thread on this side because we don't want the tail to show, and this is just in the centre of the egg, just to hide it. So this is the bit that's going to be showing. We're going to put our little brooch back on here. Now, because these are quite small brooch backs, if I pop it in the centre or anything, it might wobble a bit. So I'm just going to put it slightly above the centre, and I'm putting it across so that when it's hanging down, the weight's here and it's not going to move too much. And what we want to do is just do a couple of stitches in each of the holes just to make sure it's nice and firmly attached. And I like to go from one side to the other. See, really I should have done my stitch here slightly higher so it gets hidden. I didn't think to, so if you guys are doing it at home, just hide it under your brooch back. So that should be nice and firmly attached. I'm not going to cut off this thread though, I'm going to use this to sew around the outside edge. So let's pop this out of the way. What we need is some glue. There we go. So we'll be using some Mod Podge. Again, I haven't got anything to spread the glue with, but what I do have is lots of pieces of wood about the garage. So I'm just going to use this piece here. I'm going to grab some glue, big splodge, and I'm going to pop it on to this bit here and just put it on the purple section. Now it's going to soak up quite a bit, so you might need quite a bit of glue. There we go, don't go too far, we don't need to go over all the sides, just the purple bit. There we go, put that to one side. So whilst the glue is still wet, we're going to put our brooch back there in the centre. Make sure it's covering everything. Give it a little squeeze down, because if your brooch is a little bit concave, you want the felt to meet. Go. And then what we're going to do is just some little stitches round the outside edge with our needle and thread that's still attached. We're just catching a little bit of the side and just working just to give it that added bit of security. What I'm going to do now is just bring my thread through, so all the way through to the other side. With my scissors, I'm just going to pull quite tightly on the thread and push against the side of the brooch with the scissors and just snip. Being careful not to cut anything else. And there we go, the thread's inside, everything's attached, and you've got your first Easter brooch ready to be worn or to add to your wreath. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, be sure to give me that thumbs up down there. Also, click on that subscribe button and the bell icon if you don't want to miss out on any future videos. And if you've got any questions or comments, anything you'd like to see me making in the future, be sure to pop it down there in the comment section. Thank you for watching. Have a lovely week. Stay safe, stay warm, and I will see you next time. Bye.